I apologize. Myron, get in here. No, get in here. What did you do? You were playing around with my computer yesterday. Okay, get your stuff and get out. No, I'm serious. I know you filed a lawsuit against me the last time I fired you, but this time you're not going to win this. Look at this. You wasted 11 minutes of my live stream. Get your stuff and get out. I don't care you have 5 kids to feed. Yeah, go to the Presbyterian church, go to the deacons, they might help you out. Get out. Close the door. I apologize, you guys had to see that. I mean, I pay a minimum wage, which here in Arizona is $14.33 an hour. And he's grossly overpaid. Grossly. This is one thing you woke people have to learn. People who are paid minimum wage, some of them, not all, some of them are not worth it. Okay. So anyhow, businesses are being sued for not hiring criminals. See, this is the thing. People think that if the outcome results in minorities being not represented enough, it means that the company is automatically discriminating in a bad way and is wrong. I think not all discrimination is bad. You can discriminate between criminals and non-criminals. If I'm a business owner, I'd rather hire non-criminals. Okay, here's another short I made recently.
Endlessly talking about gender to 6-year-olds isn't just inappropriate. It's what the law would call entrapment. And if you think that some of that isn't going on with gender in schools, you're not watching enough TikTok videos.
I'm not allowed to be out as trans non-binary at school. My response to this is to be as obnoxiously queer as possible.
I never used the phrase gay agenda because I thought it was mostly nonsense. And it is, mostly. But a director for Disney television animation did say after she was hired,
the showrunners were super welcoming to my not at all secret gay agenda. I was just wherever I could, just basically adding queerness. No one would stop me and no one was trying to stop me.
endlessly talking about gender to 6-year-olds isn't just inappropriate. It's what the law would call entrapment.
Yeah, now, woke progressives are going to hate this. And I remember, a year ago, 2 years ago, mentioning on my live stream things like critical race theory, how it's seeping in and being taught in elementary schools, and woke progressives, mostly atheists, would tell me, that's not happening. Show me where that's happening. Well, now even the left, liberals like Bill Maher, who's I would say a classical liberal, saying, yeah, this is happening. You know, it's not being taught as the same way as in universities, but this whole idea of oppression, oppressors oppressed based on skin color, and you got to divide people by their racial identities or sexual preference identities. No, it is happening in elementary schools. And that one teacher there that you saw with the colorful hair, if I was a principal, I would never hire her. And I would say, based on your hair color, because you can discriminate based on hair color legally. And then the third one I just made, and this is what I want to mostly talk about.
I don't understand how black people are happy to take a position knowing that they didn't deserve it, and
then other people would be suspect.
I can't bear it. And the thing is, what then happens is that then it hurts those of us who do deserve it.
Right.
So look at how hard I've worked to put this place together. Look how amazing it is. And yet people will come up to me and say, we'd love you to join our board because we really need it to be more diverse. And I think, do you know who I am? Do you know everything I've achieved? Why can you not see me for me? They can't see me for me because they've been taught to only see color. And so I honestly feel in 1995, we had better race relationships with people than we do now. and that I wasn't treated like this. Yes, in 1995, people would come up to me and say, "Ooh, your hair, isn't it great?" Now it's a microaggression and nobody would ever touch my hair. Well, you know
Love
what?
her.
I'd rather they touch my hair than put me on a board for being diverse. I don't know.
Yeah, amen. By the way, beautiful hair. My daughter, I think, can have the exact same hair if she let it. I'm encouraging her, but she wants the extensions. And no, I mean, go natural. Like you can tell there's a bit of hair coloring in here too. But I think this hair is much prettier than that previous woman's hair. A woman? Was that a woman? But I think if I was to ask woke progressives, if white men solved the inner city education problem in the United States, would you go for it? Would you allow it? I actually think a lot of them would say no. They're the cause of the problems. But in this hypothetical, if they could actually solve the problem of inner city education, in other words, making those schools good, white men, would you do it? I mean, that would be a tough pill for them to swallow. And I think what this lady is doing is what some woke progressives in their mind is the template of white European rules for education. By the way, in case you don't know who this is, Reed, how do you say her name? She's Katharine Birbalsingh. Birbalsingh? Britain's strictest headmistress, says no one else dares to say about raising children. So she is the headmistress of a very strict school. Is it in London, Reed? And Reed, I asked him about this yesterday, and he said he actually went in the school with Peter Boghossian, and he said it was so strict he felt a little bit uncomfortable. But I have a feeling I would feel very comfortable in a school like that. And they're getting amazing results. And it's mostly inner city type kids, or are they I don't know if it's inner city. Birbalsingh, that's how you say it. Okay. In every subject, 90% of exams are graded A or B. Nearly 2/3 of our students achieve an average of 3A grades. Nearly 2/3 of our students achieve an average of 3A grades. 98% of pupils achieved grade 9 to 4 in at least 5 subjects. What does that mean? Grade 9 to 4? Is that a Britain thing? Progress 8, 2.37, first in the country. Nearly 2/3 of our pupils achieved an average of straight 7+ grades. 1/3 of all GCSEs, what does that stand for? Were grade 9. So they're whatever they're doing, it's working in terms of achievement. Let's see. There was a video I had here. Yeah, inside Britain's strictest school. This was 1 year ago.
Done. 15 seconds, go.
Some people think that the children are unhappy, that we're a bit tyrannical, that perhaps we don't really like children. And they don't see it for the joyful place that it is, where there's lots of love and the children are very successful precisely because we have an environment which is loving, that supports them and helps them to do well in life.
Even if you think you're coming in with high standards, as soon as you get here, you realise that there's always higher standards that you can reach as a teacher. And things like every single time a teacher says that's a detention, it will always be logged. Whereas in lots of schools, a teacher saying that something will happen doesn't necessarily mean that it actually does happen.
When people say we're strict, it's not that we're mean. It's just that we're very consistent with our rules and we have very high expectations. So we expect
Notice a male is teaching elementary or middle school.
them to come every day with their equipment, for instance.
Reed, did you see how many teachers, if you were to guess, what was the ratio of male to female teachers? What would be your guess?
And they would get a detention if they didn't. We expect them to turn up on time. If they don't turn up on time, they get
Turning up on time is such a racist white man's type of thing.
a detention. It's not a big deal, but it does mean that they turn up on time and that they bring their equipment.
The teachers here are amazing, but they're made to be amazing through the training, the feedback, the learning from others, and nobody walks in here a Michaela teacher ready to go. And I think it would be a disservice to the school to think that the reason why it is so good is just because they are easily getting in these.
Half and half. Okay, Reed says that 50% of the teachers, in his estimation, were male. And was this in high school or middle school? Because I said one of the ways to fix the education system in the United States is to have half of all teachers from K through 8 be male. And then in high school, 80% have them male. And in my opinion, if you want the schools to perform better, have schools lean more conservative than left, progressive.
Teachers, it takes an awful lot of work to get people to where they are.
Do you feel you're a better teacher for working here?
Without doubt, yeah, 100%. In every possible way. I didn't know what being a good teacher was until I came to Michaela.
The fact that we've got such high achieving teachers shows us that despite being from Brent, which is like one of the poorest boroughs, we can aim to be as high achieving as that.
Yeah, this was middle school, Reed says. Yeah. Yeah, get more men. And when I say men, I mean men, not men, to teach middle school.
And nothing is impossible. At the end of the day, the school knows what they're doing. The strictness has a purpose. It's just to make us more efficient and better.
Athena, you're going to wait there. Demeter and Duke, go.
We care about the kids looking at us when they're speaking to us because we know later on in life that's a soft skill that will make them successful. We have silent corridors. That makes us different.
Yeah, Costed Hymns says, big difference from the other classroom video I showed last week. Last week I showed a video of a kid just going crazy and threatening his teacher. Like, this cannot be allowed.
And people think, well, why? Why do you want to go to that extreme? And I find that if you don't do that, then you can end up with lots of fights, lots of running and screaming. And we obviously believe in what we do. Not everyone does, and I hope it persuades.
Yeah, but I'm sure this is just propaganda, right? These teachers are just saying what they want to say to make the school look good. So let's see what the parents have to say.
I think Michaela has been a breath of fresh air to the community. What stands out to myself is the discipline structure, the accountability that these students are held for, so it gives them a great foundation for the future, and teaches them how to be successful individuals and great contributors to society.
Michaela kids don't just show respect, they carry themselves with respect. They've got respect for themselves, right? For you to give anyone respect, I'm not demanding this respect. Most of the time, respect is who you are yourself. So what I believe Michaela Community School has done is it's given them value. They value themselves.
Michaela definitely does have a lot of values that link closely to the Caribbean communities, whereby...
Oh, that's why I like her. Caribbean heritage. My wife has Caribbean heritage.
Discipline is held quite highly.
I think my parents love it so much because the school reciprocates the strictness that we have at home, and it allows me to not fall into peer pressure and the opinions of others.
Malik at home, I get him to do quite a few chores. He doesn't always like to do them, but include washing the dishes, mopping the kitchen floor,
cleaning
the bathroom, taking care of his own bedroom and doing laundry at times.
The dishes aren't my favorite, but I do them from time to time. But I normally help out with
listening,
things
Matt?
cleaning the bathroom or sweeping the hallway, or just more general things in tidying up day to day around the living room and around the house.
We're teaching a lot of children in society about their rights, but are we also teaching them about their responsibilities?
Yes. See, this isn't a conservative ideal. Responsibilities before rights. If you listen to any left-wing wacko woke person, they're going to say, rights, rights, rights. I demand my rights. They're taking away my rights. You listen to someone on the right, it's about responsibilities.
Come responsibilities. If you want the right to do something, you also have a responsibility alongside that right.
You've got teachers that are scared of their kids in certain schools. I would not mention no names, but the schools know themselves, right?
Mention the names.
You've got kids talking back to their teachers. There have been stories out there that you've heard about kids stabbing their teachers. You never heard about Michaela. They can't even talk back to their teacher, let alone get onto that level of so when it comes to about being strict, I don't think it's a dirty word.
Yeah. You have no right to freedom of speech in your elementary, middle school.
Don't at all.
Like I said, our values cross-link with Michaela. So we do have a strong discipline structure at home, but I do think it's something that's definitely needed with society today, with the young people. And again, teaching them responsibilities more so than their rights. Their responsibility comes first. And you earn your right to do something. It's not something that's just a given. You have to earn everything that you gain in life.
Yes. Oh, so true. You have to earn everything. You have to earn respect. You have to earn privilege.
Individual, if you want to start a business, if you want to grow within society, you have to learn how to earn things and respect things, and by earning it, you understand the value of it yourself. And
Yeah, well said. Okay, this is the student's perspective here.
I think when people see ask from the outside, they think it's really strict, but once you get used to it, it's not as strict. You just get used to the rules.
At first it feels a bit much, but then you get used to it eventually. So it doesn't feel strict, but then to the outside world, I guess, they would see it as strict.
For example, I remember one time I had 3 detentions. I got very angry, but then because my sister, who was already in Michaela, she taught me that you have to get used to it, but this life in Michaela, and this will help you in the future. So I got used to it. So I know that I have to take it upon the chin and just move on and learn from my mistakes.
Take it on the chin.
I think, when I got here day one, it was so strict. So
Well, this guy looks like he's 25. He's in high school?
everything was as straight as a ruler. There was no left-right business. Everything was I'm honestly, I can't put it into words. Like, the experience that I had on the first day it blew me away. In both a good and a bad way, because, being, 14, 13,
Must be
14,
alum.
and sort of experiencing this for the first time was a big shock. But now looking back on it, I see the benefits of it. And, being someone who was bullied quite a lot in primary school, having that transition from being bullied and then sort of being able to build myself up without pressure of what other people will say or think, it was honestly life-changing, because today I'd say I'm quite a confident person. I'm able to speak in front of large groups of people without worrying what they think about what I'm saying. I'm able to express myself, and I feel like bullying is like a cage that doesn't let you do that. And having the school just completely wipe out bullying and allowing students and pupils to excel and not
Hey, Reed, if you're still here, did you see any trans or non-binary people there?
be judged for wanting to excel, I think it's just brilliant.
Students?
Without doubt, Michaela is strict. The teachers hold very high standards for us, and for some people who aren't used to that can be quite difficult. But I think because they hold us to such a high account, and they expect us to be responsible for ourselves, it's a good thing, because it allows us to grow as individuals.
As soon as you enter the classroom, the teacher will tell you to take your pencil cases out of your work pack, and within a minute or less than a minute of being in that classroom, you'll start getting to work, and everybody's got their eyes on the teacher. They're slanting, and they're...
By the way, this school that they're talking about right now, I believe is akin to a charter school here in the U.S., so it's free to the students. It's not a private school. Reed says, no, he did not see any trans or non-binary people there. Hard to do when there's a dress code. Yeah, I agree. And a hair code. So if you want the education system to be better in the United States, especially for inner schools, public schools, have a dress code. Have high standards. Have zero tolerance for misbehavior. I mean, raise your expectations. And don't say, oh, they're a minority. They're an oppressed minority. We can't have high expectations. It's not their fault. No, it's your fault for misbehaving. Detention.
He or her, and this is amazing because we can be able to get through a lot of content in a short amount of time, whereas in other schools.
Yeah, someone in the live stream chat just made a great point. Is this just an old-fashioned school? Isn't it interesting how the progressives tend to say, well, we're progressing. Well, here's an example where conservatism may be best. We're going back to the way it was because we're finding out that the way that schools are being run in some places in the country, in the United States, public schools, is not working. They're doing the opposite. Dress codes? Oh, that's so barbaric. You gotta allow the kids to express themselves. No, you don't. Detention? That's so mean. And I mean, it's not their fault. Yes, it is. You can't expect them to know all these things. I mean, it's what's important is their identity. Ugh. Peter did ask our student guides how the gay kids were treated, and they were confused. They didn't think in those terms. They all treated each other with kindness. Yeah, let's get to the actual video of when you and Peter were there. Where should I start this? I seem to remember about here.
Conservative government are backing us. Well, I haven't found that at all. I found quite the opposite. Now, of course, it'll be interesting when Labour get in, because Labour are about to come in now. And, you know, if this is what life was like under the Conservatives, I would very much worry about what life will be like under Labour.
Why?
Well, because we are not progressive. We're very traditional. What we prove, I always think of us as like the show pony for schools, and all of these teachers who come from all over the place, including Chicago, New York, all kinds of teachers come. They copy what we do, and we have changed things in a number of schools. I see using a number of our methods, which is great because we have had impact on schools across in Australia, in New Zealand. I mean, this is, across the Western world, we've had impact.
You said methods. What are the Michaela methods? What methods
Here we
are
go.
you trying to...
So what are the methods? So we consider ourselves to be traditional. Progressives are very relaxed when it comes to behavior. They see children to be parts of different victim groups. So they'll say, okay, you're in the black group, you're in the LGBT group, you're in the Muslim group, you're in the whatever group.
Yeah.
And they teach children to identify with that and to see.
What she's talking about, in essence, is critical theory, critical race theory. What's important is the group you're in, the oppressed group you're in. And the more oppressed you are, the more we ought to value you or listen to you or feel sorry for you.
See the world through the victim's eyes. We, on the other hand, push very much this idea of working hard and being kind. That work hard, be kind, actually, we stole from the American KIP Charter Network.
Yeah.
They used to have a motto called work hard, be nice.
Kind is a much better word. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we changed it because we didn't want to have the exact same motto, but they've actually been stopped from having, I don't know if you know this, but they've been prevented. So after George Floyd, they came under attack for being racist, for having this motto, because if white teachers teach black children to be nice, that means you're teaching them to be subservient, and therefore it's racist. And KIPP then took their motto down. Now, there's no way I'm ever taking our motto down, because I think it's right to teach children to work hard and be kind. And at the very least, you manage to get all your children to be those two things, then brilliant. Obviously, you want them to be able to do more than that, but you want them to have resilience, to persevere, to be stoical, to keep on going when it gets hard.
See, these these are things I love and value greatly. And I view these as conservative ideals, conservative values. And so this is why I say, if you want the schools to be better, public schools, inner city type schools, be more conservative.
To persevere, to be stoical, to keep on going when it gets hard, working hard. And then you also want them to be kind, nice people. You know, working in the inner city all my life, and my teachers will also tell you where they've worked, if a child were to drop a plate in the canteen, in other schools, what happens is, that's what happens to kind of humiliate the child who's dropped something. If it happens here, 5, 6 children run to help them pick up what they've dropped. I've seen children put their hands into wet lasagna on the floor to put it back on the plate, you know, because they're trying to help their classmate. And I just think it's really important that children be brought up in that way across racial and religious divides. So our children have backgrounds from all over the place. We've got Muslim children, Hindu children, Jehovah's Witnesses, all types.
What I would be curious to ask her and know is, are there some kids who come from such a terrible family life that they won't accept them? Like the detention doesn't work. Nothing works. They're so messed up that they won't fit in this school.
And we very much create an environment and socialize them into being able to get on with each other.
Okay, so I'm having a hard time. So who on earth is against this?
Well, everybody.
Okay, talk me through it.
Okay, so, all right. So people who
There might be some people in my live stream right now who are against this. I hope not.
don't like it, they would come and say, how come there's silence in the corridors and all the kids do is say good morning and good afternoon to their teachers? How come they're not skipping along talking about Aristotle? And when I say, you know, the thing is, inner city kids don't skip along talking about Aristotle. What they do is they punch each other in the head and run screaming down corridors, whacking each other, and little kids get trampled on and so on and so forth. Now, I've done this all my life. I know what corridors look like in inner city schools. But unfortunately, I think a lot of the people making decisions have never been in an inner city school. They have no idea what they're talking about. They have no idea what's happening on the ground. So I've spent my life trying to get people to understand what is happening in these schools, but nobody seems to care, mainly because they don't care about these kinds of kids. And what they care about, I would argue, is looking like they are good people.
Yeah, my wife is a teacher for many years, but it's not an inner city school. It's in what I would say a pretty good school. However, there are a few kids there that are just a menace. But these kids tend to come from single parent homes or divorced homes or just homes where the parents are bad. And yes, it's okay to call certain parents bad. And so my question for her is like, you can have a school with all these rules and be strict, but if the parents in the home are not pulling up their end, who's going to win that battle? They still spend more hours at home than they do at school.
Seeming like they are good people. So they put black boxes up on Instagram and they say, I'm an anti-racist. I always think when these people are attacking me on Twitter and so on, well, what do you actually do? What do you do every day? Because every day I'm in work at 6:45 a.m. and I've been doing this for over 25 years. And I've been changing the lives of kids in the inner city who come from poor backgrounds, who just want a chance in life, you know? And the only way these kids are going to get a chance in life is if they get an education. And I know how important school is. I think a lot of people don't realize how important school is. And they just think you're either born with the brains or you're not, and that sort of thing. As opposed to, there's so much that we adults can do to influence a child and shape who he's going to become. And
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And we homeschooled our kids till grade 6, grade 5. And I think this whole idea that kids need to be socialized around other kids is highly overdone. Now, don't misunderstand me. Although if you want to, go ahead. I'm saying it is important to socialize kids. However, when kids learn from kids, it's not as good as when kids learn from adults, responsible adults. And this is the huge advantage that homeschooling has over public schools, especially I'd say through K through 6. Because kids will pick up a lot of bad behaviors from other kids, which homeschooling kids tend not to do.
All the problems that you see both in America and over here, where adults, either illiterate or innumerate functionally, I mean, or different groups that have been created where people cannot get on with each other and they hate each other, that's happened because of what takes place in schools, right? And people don't seem to realize this. They don't realize how important schools are. And I know that the conversation is people talk about what's happening at the universities, but the reason why the kids at the universities are so easily manipulated is because they've already been completely brainwashed when they're at school.
Yes. Amen. Like my kids, I can't say for sure because my son's still in grade 12 and my daughter's decided to work instead of go to college. They would be immune. I could stick my kids in the most liberal, well, let's say progressive, woke type university department. And I can guarantee you they're going to be rolling their eyes. They're going to be questioning their teachers, and they're probably going to get an F for daring to push back.
So, okay. All right. So going back to the faculty you have here, the teachers, to teach here, you have to have a teaching certificate.
Yeah, I mean, look, my teachers are very bright and very good. So I have teachers who've been to Oxford and Cambridge. I've got teachers who have been to the next grade level university down from that.
Why do I think she has no non-binary teachers? Why do I suspect she has no trans teachers?
They're very good. But the thing is, you could do this stuff anywhere. Really. Now, it might not be exactly the same, you know, maybe not all the kids would be putting their hands up as you saw, but you would transform. I've heard from other head teachers out there, from people. So I've been doing some work with a school in the Bronx, which is a charter school called Vertex Academies.
Oh, yeah.
And Ian Rowe is set it up. And I've been doing some work with him. And I went in there and saw X, Y, and Z and then gave some advice. The place has got so much better with just following the advice that I've given them. You know, these things work.
I can guarantee you there's some people who they're offended by her even saying that. It sounds so arrogant, so conceited to say, hey, I gave them advice and now they're doing better.
And to be honest, we're not the only ones. There are other schools that take some of these ideas, make that happen. So when I say take some of these ideas, the adults should be the authority in the room.
Okay. I'm just going to ask, okay, so adults are the authority in the room.
So what I mean by that is, you know, the friends of yours who might be parents and they want to be friends with their kids.
Yeah.
And they don't really know how to discipline them. They don't tell them off.
Yeah.
They don't punish them. And
I remember, I don't know how old my daughter was. But I remember, and I forget the context, but I remember telling her, I am not your friend. I am your dad. You listen to me. We're not equals. I'm here. You're down there. See, a progressive woke person, I mean, they would throw up if they had to say something like that.
Praise them and so on. Even the word punish these days is considered to be a bad word. You can't say it. First, it was punish. Then they moved to sanctioning kids. Then they moved to correcting kids. Now they talk about consequences for kids. Over the years that I have been teaching, these words have changed because it's simply unacceptable to discipline a child, which is crazy. It's not like you're beating them. You know, you give them a 20-minute detention. Well, what's the big deal? Or if you're a parent, you make them sit on the naughty step, or you tell them that they're not allowed to use their phone that night, or whatever it is. We have to be adults. We've lost adult authority in our society in the Western world, I think, these days. It's also the case, so adult authority. Then
Well, and the thing is, it's a cycle. Why aren't some parents acting like adults? Because they weren't raised properly. So it has to start somewhere.
there's the curriculum. So everybody's going around decolonizing their curriculum everywhere. We haven't done that. I mean, it's the case.
What do you mean by decolonize?
Okay, so it's not that we don't read any books by Black authors. We do. It's not that we don't include Black people in our discussion around British history. So 1 million soldiers gave their lives from India in the Second World War. We wouldn't teach the Second World War without mentioning that, for instance. But what we don't do is teach a whole unit, which would be 6 weeks or longer, on the Black Tudors. Because there were a few Black people in Britain during Tudor times, but it doesn't warrant 6 weeks of study.
It doesn't warrant 6 weeks of study to study the Black people during World War II, what they did. Because we don't feel sorry for them. I mean, the reason why those sorts of things happen in the United States is because of feel sorry forism. We feel so sorry for the oppressed, we have to build them up, make them more prominent in our history class.
So we might mention that Henry VIII had a trumpeter called John Blank and he was Black. Yes, but we wouldn't spend all our time on these issues. And that's because we think we want to teach children British history and chronologically. So history is often not taught chronologically anymore. So children have no real grasp of where they're coming from. We teach British history to all of our children because it is their history. People might say, I think both on the right and the left, oh no, they're not white, therefore they're not British. But I believe very much that they are British. And this idea that they're actually from somewhere else, Nigeria or Ghana or, United.
Of course they're British. They were colonized by the Brits.
Arab
States. I was going to say,
No,
I'd say, well, we'll take that.
UAE
That's good.
is what I'd say. The fact is that our kids, their parents may be from somewhere else, their grandparents may be from somewhere else, but they very much should be taught British history. We sing God Save the King. We sing other hymns or songs like that, that represent the country. And the reason for that is that we're multicultural, but we're all under the same umbrella of being British. And that's important because, in America and here, we see all kinds of discord and division between different groups. And I think that is
manufactured.
Yeah, it is exactly in the schools.
Totally.
Because everybody's asked, how do you identify?
Yeah.
As opposed to, well,
I'm looking at the timestamps, but all this is so good.
I'm actually British and I'm human. And
Right.
This is what we share together. So we have all of our children living together here in the school, being friends with each other across those divides, because it's what we believe in. We believe, and we never, we just don't do the kinds of things that other schools do, which divide children, I think. I think it's good.
Yeah. Stop dividing children. Who cares if you're Black? Who cares if you're Muslim? Who cares if you're gay? We don't care. Let's all learn together and be kind.
For children to care about each other across those divides.
Okay, so many people watching this won't have an understanding because they didn't have the tour. And even when I read about the school, I still couldn't
Yes, it takes visiting. I always say to people, you need to come and see it.
It really does. It really does.
Well, there is a documentary about us, which might, you can find it at Headmistress. What is it? Strictestheadmistress.com.
Costs $5.
Oh, is that you?
Yes, that's
the
me.
Strictest headmistress.
Yes, and the producer, she set it up on this website so people can watch it. What that documentary does is it does allow you to see the kids, to see some of the teaching, to get a feel for it. Because when you just read about it, it's true. You can't know what it's like.
Okay, so walk us through for a minute or two. The kids come in at what time, and then what do they do? And I noticed there's a little room for the phones. They put the phones in, and walk us through.
I don't know what you mean by room.
Isn't there a room?
Oh, that's digital drop off. So, okay, first of all, they're not allowed phones in the school at all.
Okay.
They're not allowed phones in the school at all. Yeah. Step one, making schools better than the United States. No smartphones allowed.
Well, I say they're not allowed. If we hear them or we see them, we take them. So if you have a phone and we never hear it, never see it, fine.
Don't ask,
and
don't
because
tell.
everything's so orderly, we just never see phones. It just never happens. In other schools, gosh, the kids are going around with their earphones on, with their phones. So not only do we say no to phones in the classrooms here in the corridors, but the digital drop-off that you saw is actually us encouraging them to get rid of their phones for a whole week or a couple of days. So they build up to it. I'm going to do it tonight. I'm going to give him my phone. Oh, I spent the whole evening, miss, without my phone. Okay, why don't we try it for 2 nights now? See if you can do it. And then coming up towards exams, kids are giving in their phones and so we've got exams, internal exams happening in 10 days time. So they're giving in their phones because for 10 days, they're going to go without their phones. And there's a real sense they all understand how bad phones are for everything, for their mental health, for their exam results, for the growth of their brain.
Yeah, with my kids, they weren't allowed to. They didn't get a smartphone until they were after 16, and then even then, they weren't allowed to go on social media without supervision. I mean, and my daughter's view on TikTok and Instagram, like she basically views teenagers as idiots who just spend hours and hours and hours watching TikTok.
There are all kinds of studies done that show that if a toddler is on a phone, I can guarantee you he's never going to become a reader. Like, he may read, he'll never love reading. It's impossible. And parents don't realize this. They give their children these phones, and they don't know, Social Dilemma, which was on a film on Netflix.
Kristen Harris,
Kristen Harris, exactly. They were whistleblowing, trying to say, look at what we're doing. And they weren't even talking about kids. They were talking about adults. So people just don't know, and they give their kids these devices because they're great babysitters. Let's face it.
Yeah,
Parents
lazy.
Want to give a break. They give them a phone. The kid goes quiet.
Parents are lazy. Some parents are lazy. They rather turn on the TV or say, go on the internet than actually spend quality time with their kids.
But they don't know what the trouble they're storing up. Every crazy person out there, every pedophile, every gang member, they all have access to your child. They know what their favorite food is and where they go to school and their walk to school and who their friends are and everything. And there are children who have been murdered. Not our children, but I'm just saying there have been children who have been murdered. There are mums out there. There's an American mum, Breck Bednar. Her boy, she brought him up here. He was murdered because she allowed him to game online. And by the time she went to the police, he had been so taken in by the groomer. There was nothing the police could do. So the thing is, people don't realize the danger they're putting their children into. But there's also the brain, the breaking of the brain, which just makes them more stupid. Ultimately,
Jonathan Haidt has been
he's great. So everything that Jonathan Haidt is saying is absolutely spot on.
Yeah.
I have the experience of it anecdotally. I can tell you, I see it here. I can tell you for nothing. The kids who go up in terms of the set that they're in, academic sets, because we have 4 sets, top to bottom. The ones that go up never have a phone. The ones that come down are always on their phones.
Interesting. Okay,
it's fascinating.
Okay, so walk me through the day. What time do the kids get in?
So they get in just before 8. And then they're here till 3:15. They have you want. It's having the skills and the knowledge that's required to be able to live a truly free life where you can fulfill your ambitions, where you have the skills and the knowledge to find what you love and do what you love. If you haven't had freedoms restricted when you were younger, like no smartphone, like go to bed by 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, like very, supervised access to the laptop and the internet and so on, people look at me, they say to me, oh, you must hate children because you want corridors to be silent. No, I take that freedom from them in order to ensure that they have the possibility of being able to gain those skills and knowledge to make something with their lives later so that they'll be free later. Of course.
Yeah. Can you imagine a woke progressive admitting, I take away freedoms of children?
Of course, children aren't free. I mean, they shouldn't be free. I mean,
Amen.
Obviously.
So one of the things that I was thinking of.
Yes, children ought not to be free. They're children. They don't know what's best for them. They tend to be stupid and moronic at times. They definitely can't consent to puberty blockers.
What percentage, or even maybe it's not a percentage, maybe it's a number, of kids do you expel for disciplinary issues?
Very few. No more than the national average. So we have done, permanent, but I mean, I haven't done one for a couple of years at least. I mean, Like
because I'm thinking because I'm always thinking like, what would someone say? So one of the reasons that Chinese test scores are so high is they only allow certain people to
Yes.
take the test.
Yes.
One of the reasons.
Yes, that's not happening here.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Well, I haven't expelled anybody for 2 years, so
Okay.
at least. And we do not have more than the national average, which would be maybe one a year or something. So that does not,
Okay.
that doesn't apply here. And it's also the case that they have been given to us by the local council. We have not chosen these kids.
See, that's a key. So they weren't.
Yeah, and I bet you some people think, oh, they're only successful because they select just the best and brightest kids.
Self-selected. I mean, they
No.
weren't. So I'll push back on something you said. I cannot fathom that this would work in the United States.
Of course it would. Of course it would.
No, politically.
Well, no.
I don't think there's any political will
No,
to have an
no.
institution. I mean,
well,
I
you
think
just
it
need
would
someone who's
be-
crazy enough like me to do it. No. There's no political.
Well, there's one way to do it in the United States. Get rid of public schools. Can you imagine?
Will here either. This hasn't happened because I've had support. This has happened in spite of the government. This has happened in spite of all the people who hate us, because we've had to fight for it.
Even
So
when
in
they
2000
see the outcomes, even when you say, hey, look, here are the outcomes, and here's the neighborhood school, here are their outcomes.
Yep, that's right. People still campaign to ruin us.
And the reason that I just find this to be, I'm really trying to, that's why I asked if it's the right or the left. I mean, I would think it's the right because they want minorities to fail. Or
No.
I'm trying to think of like
no.
why
I have to
someone
say
be
the right.
against this.
Look, the right generally tend to be in favor of us. There's some of them will feel uncomfortable with silent corridors and so on. But the right do tend to be in favor of us. Although when I speak about restricting children's freedom, you can see them kind of bristle a little.
I didn't bristle one bit. I mean, and nobody knows the conservative like I do. No. I totally agree. You restrict the freedoms of kids. Because they're idiots. They need to learn. They don't know what we know. They haven't even begun to live life. They don't have the experience.
To be in favor of us because we have a traditional curriculum, we have a traditional approach to education, we're not encouraging the kids to be victims, and so on. So the right tend to support us. The left are very much against us because they don't like traditional values. They want a progressive curriculum, so they want it to be decolonized and so on. They want to teach critical race theory. They want to divide children according to groups, and they don't like the fact that we don't do that. They will argue. So what will they argue?
Yeah, I'm imagining that the woke progressives want school run like jails. Like, jails, they have the white supremacists and the black people and I don't know who else, different gangs, like all different groups.
They'll say special needs kids can't possibly cope with your school. And my position on that is
It's an
they
unusual
are
argument. but
well,
yeah,
they're
okay.
they love it, the special needs kids, because when you teach them in a traditional way, when you have silence in the classroom so that they can hear.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt. Let's back. What do you mean by special needs kids? I think it might mean something different here in the U.S.
No, it means the same thing.
Okay.
Any kind of, I don't know, you're autistic,
Oh,
you're
yes,
dyslexic,
that's
you're,
right.
yeah, any of those things.
Okay.
I mean, we've got autistic children here. We've got
Special needs kids, aka atheist kids.
a couple of kids. One boy who jumps on the ground in the same spot in the
Autistic.
playground. I mean, they love it. They love the order and clarity. I mean, the thing is that they can't imagine special needs kids doing well here because their special needs kids are allowed to act out. But the thing is with children, if you pull the fence in tight, they will behave within that fence as long as you're consistent. So look, one of the reasons why children of divorced families have a hard.
Okay, so if you're listening right now and you're a parent and you're divorced, be prepared to be shamed.
harder time being successful in life. Obviously, it's possible to do, and single moms
sure.
can bring up children well and so on. I'm not saying they can't, but it's more difficult. The reason it's more difficult is because of the inconsistency between the two houses. So if dad is saying, go to bed when you want, and mum is saying, go to bed at 9, if mum is saying, you can be on the smartphone when you want, but dad is saying, no, I'm taking the smartphone away, that inconsistency is poison to a child, and they can't cope with it, and then they spin out of control. That's why children being brought up under one roof, much better idea, because hopefully mum and dad are singing from the same hymn sheet. But I have to say, if they're not, that child will also struggle. So
Yeah, so if you're listening right now on the replay and you're married and you're considering divorce, my advice is stay married and be unhappy in the inside. For 18 years, you brought life into this world. Now you're responsible for it. Be roommates with your spouse for 18 years at least. and get on the same page with your spouse, be consistent, provide a safe, stable home for your kids so they don't become unproductive, criminal type people in society. You owe this to society. So who cares if, he doesn't treat me well. He's not, he doesn't appreciate me, never brings me flowers. Get over that.
So it's the same thing in a school. What tends to happen in schools is that people just let it go. They just say, okay, hire the teachers, you go and do what you like in your own classroom. But when you just let it go like that, there's no consistency. And there's no, like, our school, we are all applying the same methods. We're all having similar conversations with the kids, and we all have similar values. So when you say it's impossible to understand, it's probably because your values are very similar to ours. If your values are, so I gave a talk, and I talked about the same sort of stuff I'm talking to you about now. And this woman got up to me, and a white woman, white middle-class woman, came up to me and said,
they're the worst.
What about the racism? Why don't you teach them about racism? And I said, well, I don't think I need to be talking about racism all the time. I want to talk to them about the skills and knowledge that they need to be able to overcome obstacles in their life.
Right.
Some of that may be racism and other obstacles. And she said, but the racism is so bad. You've got to teach them. You've got to teach them. And I said, but I think they're okay. And she kept saying it. And I said, they do know that they're black, you know. That's what I said. I said, they do know. And what they need to know is how to jump over.
My kids actually did know. When my kids finally went to public school and people, I remember the first time my son and daughter came home, the kids called me black. Dad, am I black? I just laughed. Yeah, we joke about it now.
How to build resilience, how to build stoicism and perseverance in them and so on. That's what they need. And she got so angry and she marched off.
You mean, surely she doesn't mean that kids should learn how to control their emotions.
On me. And I just thought, you, a white woman, are telling me how bad racism it is. I've worked, one, I'm not white. Two, I've worked in the inner city with brown and black kids all of my life. I know what works, but you're telling me that I'm somehow letting them down by not constantly going on about racism. Now, look, I'll give an assembly about Serena Williams. I'll give an assembly about, Martin Luther King or whatever.
Tiger Woods.
But when I do that, I'm not saying life is so hard for Serena Williams. Gosh, she's had to fight so hard. What I say is she wakes up at 4 a.m. She goes onto the tennis court.
Exactly.
This is what she eats. This is how she trains. We've got to be like her. It's a very different thing. And
this is the thing. Serena Williams, I watched her documentary, and she did have a lot of obstacles and struggles, but she got up early. She worked hard. She practiced, and she has a lot of natural ability as well, of course. She's a big woman, strong, powerful woman. But my advice to minorities, oppressed minorities, is, life sucks. It's going to be hard. It's unfair. But you have to be better than the people around you. Your goal should be to whatever field you get into, because racism exists and is real, you have to be better than the people around you. You have to be more moral, you have to be kinder, and you have to be more proficient. You have to be better. And if you can't handle that pressure, learn to handle it. Now, that's the type of thing I teach my kids. I teach my son that all the time. Don't put your hoodie on. Leave it off, because people will perceive you a certain way. Be more moral, kind than people around you. Earn their respect. And when they look at you, they have nothing but good thoughts.
Grit.
I think this is it. Grit's a nice word. What people don't realize is, in an effort to demonstrate compassion themselves and to make themselves feel better about their own privileges, they deny the kinds of conversations that they had when they were children to children who need those conversations all the more so. So disadvantaged kids, minority kids, etc. And that's because they think that in order to help these kids, they need quotas. Well, it's all right. Let them fail at everything. And then when they get to the top, to, finishing up, we'll just let them into the university and we'll give them that diploma because we'll tick that box. And then we'll put them in that company because we'll tick that box.
Yeah. One of my advices of how to improve the school system is fail more kids. Let them know they're not good enough. And then when they pass, it has more meaning. I did it. Very hard for a woke progressive to say this.
That's no way to live your life. The way to live your life and have a successful life is to work for it. It's to graft. Like, that's what makes life worth living.
Yes.
Trust fund kids all end up committing suicide.
Uh-oh.
Or they're high on drugs.
Read.
They're unhappy, and they're unhappy because they have a trust fund. Now, I'm not saying, obviously, there's a level of poverty that you go below. That's unacceptable. So I'm not saying that. But I'm saying you come from an ordinary family. That's where you need to get to a good school. The good school is your ticket, right? It's your ticket to everything because your parents don't speak English or they don't have books at home or they never take you to the theater and so on. So you are depending on your teachers to change your life for you. And if your teachers are massively unionized and are marching into school saying, I'm not going to stay here past 3 o'clock and I'm not doing this and I'm not doing that and so on and so forth, well, then who is there to save these kids, right? Now, look.
She sounds like she doesn't like unions, teacher unions.
I'm not saying teachers shouldn't be paid more. Maybe they should be. I'm not saying teachers don't work in terrible conditions because they do. The thing is that the leadership in our schools is often lacking. So teachers are battling it out in classrooms where the behavior is so bad.
I know, I've seen it.
There's nothing I feel for these teachers. I once went and went to a conference in Florida, I spent a few days with some teachers there. The stories they told me, oh my goodness, it was just horrifying. I felt so sorry for them. And I was giving them advice, but their hearts were broken. Like they had no more resolve. They'd given up because they'd just been squashed by the system. And so if the teachers are like that, imagine what the kids are like, But it is possible to do, as you've seen here. And look, not everybody's going to have it as it is here, but there are big ticket things you can do in schools to change things for the better. But you have to be willing. Look, I am hated by so many people. And
I just find that to be,
And she's okay with that. That's another big difference between the right and the left. The left, if they're hated, I
find that to be so...
Especially by their own tribe. They're hated by their own tribe. They've lost their community, and that's all they have.
Look, I don't know if you know about our recent thing about the prayer issue. Like, look, I'm
tell
all over
me about that.
the newspapers. I'm literally scared for my life.
Yeah, tell me about the prayer thing.
So...
Oh, here we go.
We have 50% of our kids are Muslim. When we first started in 2014, we opened the school in 2014 with just year 7, and we've grown the school ever since. We now have 50% of our intake are Muslims. So we've grown our Muslim intake. And we've never had a prayer room. I've always been very clear with families about us not having a prayer room. And, the Muslim families weigh it up and they think, you know what?
They don't have to come here, right?
No, they could go somewhere else.
Okay.
And so I tell them, I don't just tell them we don't have a prayer room. I tell them we have silent corridors. I tell them we have family lunch. I tell them all the things that I think might bother them, not just Muslim families, I mean all the families, because I know we're very different. And so I tell them all of this. And then they come. And they put up with it. The Jehovah's Witnesses put up with the fact that we read Shakespeare's Macbeth for a set text. They don't like that. Some of the Hindus families have complained about the
Jehovah's Witnesses don't like witches? What's wrong with witches?
Plates because they touch egg.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 50% Muslim in London seems kind of crazy. Yeah.
And they don't like that, But everybody goes, you know what? It's a multicultural community. It's multi-faith, multiracial. In order for us all to get on, we're going to have to sacrifice. So they sacrifice, and it's fine. But last year, we did allow prayer in the yard because we don't have anything against prayer.
Big mistake.
And in the yard, they're all mixed between races and so on. And I think that's really important. Schools don't think about this stuff. They allow enclaves to create, right? So as I say, LGBT group, black group, etc., as opposed to actively ensuring that kids are mixing with each other. because that's what schools are meant to do. They're meant to socialize children so that they can be socialized adults who are able to interact with a whole variety of people.
Okay, the prayer thing.
And then the prayer thing. So we allowed them to pray in the yard.
Okay.
A few kids started praying.
And that's
more
the
and
yard
more.
right
That's just outside,
okay,
which
okay.
is basically a cop-out.
I like that Peter was trying to keep her on topic, but this woman, I mean, she has everything she wants to say lined up, I think. Peter could just sit back and listen.
Because we don't have any grass or trees.
Right, okay.
Because we're in the middle of the inner city in an old office block. And because of our ethos, we can't have, first of all, the idea of a prayer room makes no sense because we have 350 Muslims. I mean, we'd have to have several prayer rooms,
Right.
and we don't have the space for that. So then we'd have to allow them into the classrooms as they are. Well, then that would mean removing all their bags and their coats that stay in there now. If kids are just roaming the halls, well, we don't allow kids to roam the halls because we're the strictest school in Britain. So all of our ethos would go out the window if we did that. In the yard, fine, we didn't mind. But what happened was that I suppose people saw us from outside the gates. I don't really know, but a campaign started online. Thousands of people signed this petition. Why don't they have a prayer room? You're a bunch of Islamophobes, etc.
Oh.
Which obviously we're not. I mean, we've grown our Muslim intake from 30% to 50%. My own grandmother was Muslim. Like, it's just a silly thing to say.
Some of my best friends are black.
But the idea is, if we don't get what we want, you're a bunch of Islamophobes. Now, our kids weren't saying that. It was people on the outside.
Stupid people.
We started getting death threats. We had a bomb threat. Police had to come and search the school. One of my black teachers was so badly racially abused, called the N-word, the C-word, compared to a monkey, all kinds of horrible things that were sent to the school. Both she and I received death threats. She and I had to take cars into school, friends dropping us off and stuff.
That's the scary thing about societies. I mean, there's so many stupid, emotional people that are dangerous. If you don't give us what we want, I mean, the stupidity, the letting their emotions run rampant. I mean, this is just terrible.
She was so terrified. So was I terrified. And eventually things calmed down. Why? Because we banned prayer. Now, that was on the outside, coming into the inside. But within...
What's interesting is they banned prayer. If a Christian was to come in here and listen to this live stream, and that's the first thing they heard, they would assume, because she has a British accent, that she's talking about banning prayer to Jesus. And they would say, yeah, that's bad. You shouldn't ban prayer in schools. We need to bring God back in our schools. She's talking about banning prayer to Allah. And what is the Christian going to say now? Okay, yeah, I'm for banning that prayer.
In the school, what was fascinating is that during Ramadan, some of the children fast. That's fine by us. Some of the children in this particular Ramadan, for 8 years, remember, nobody prayed. We allowed them to pray in the odd, but they never did. And then once the prayer started, more and more kids started praying. And then they would stand by the break hall food table and intimidate Muslims who wanted to eat. They didn't want to fast, and tell them that they were bad Muslims unless they ate the food, right? One girl started wearing...
This sort of thing happened to me when I was in high school, except for the Christian perspective. Doug, I noticed you didn't pray before you ate your lunch. You're a bad Christian. Doug, I didn't see you at Bible study the other day, or our school, Bible thing. Are you not a real Christian, Doug?
Wearing a hijab. She didn't cover her head, but suddenly she was made to feel that she ought to. One girl dropped out of the choir because singing is haram. Kids were then being made to pray or being strongly encouraged, intimidated into it. The whole culture changed in the school. So the governors, that combined with the outside threats, took the right decision, I believe, to abolish prayer. And we did. And, almost instantly, the school went back to normal. I mean, everybody with the joyful place that you just saw today. Which
Get rid of prayer in the schools, and the schools will be better. Muslim prayer. So you Christians can relax. We can still the Christians, they can pray in their brain easier than Muslims. The Muslims have to kneel a certain way and point a certain direction. But Christians, they can pray without ceasing in their brain. Huge advantage Christians have over Muslims.
can't believe
Joyful would be a great word for it.
that place over that week and a bit had changed, completely. It was a totally different school. It felt more like a normal school,
And who's giving you these death threats? I mean, is it the usual
Random
suspects?
people out there.
She and I drank at the same
People
time.
who were very upset to hear that we didn't have a prayer room. But as I say, we'd have to have lots of prayer rooms. We'd have to change our whole ethos. Michaela, the school as it is incompatible with prayer rituals. So people are allowed to pray in their heads, obviously. I have those beliefs. I want very much for the children in my care to have those beliefs. And I would say that one of the reasons, so partly it's because of my color that they attack me so much, because I'm meant to think in a particular kind of way and they hate the fact that I don't.
Oh, yeah.
And two, I say
You are a woman of color. How dare you value and share in some of these conservative principles? I mean, what's the equivalent of Uncle Tom? What's a female name starts with T? Tammy. You're an Aunt Tammy.
stuff. So like I try and expose the left for their racism, because the way in which everything is set up is the right are racist, the left are good people. And that's not true. The fact is there's racism across both the left and the right. I, of course, experience.
What she just said, I mean, is really tough for a lot of people to swallow on both sides of the political aisle. People on the left are not evil. People on the right are not evil in general. But there are evil people on the right and there are evil people on the left. There are bad ideas on the left and there are bad ideas on the right. And then people are going to get mad at me. Oh, Doug, stop with this centrist type talk. Hey, there are no great centrists in American history. Progressives and the far right are the people who actually have impacted American history.
On the left, but of course there is racism on the right too. And the problem I have is that the right never want to recognize racism. So if I talk about my experiences, in fact, we've just seen it. I just saw that Nikki Haley talking about her experiences as being mixed Indian and white growing up, and that some beauty pageant or something she was in, and how they didn't know where to put her because she wasn't black, she wasn't white. What were they going to do with her? And
sort of like Obama, sort of like Tiger Woods, sort of like my kids. Where do we put these people?
And the right, the immediate thing is there's backlash with the right. How dare she talk about racism? She's playing the victim card. No, she's not playing the victim card. She's just describing what her experiences were like when she was a child. And so she's saying she understands what racism is. There's nothing wrong in explaining about racism, but unfortunately...
I just compared my kids to Obama and Tiger Woods. Parent pride.
Nowadays, because the left have made racism or any kind of, issue that someone might have that's an ism, let's say, because they've made it so ridiculous. When I say ridiculous, what I mean is such a hot potato where everything is racist, people like Ibram Kendi and so on, which is just anti-racism,
right,
which makes everybody racist, They've made it so... impossible for anyone to have a sensible conversation around race, that the right's reaction is just victim, you're
right,
claiming victimhood, so you can't actually talk about it. And then the people on the left, they only recognize the kind of racism that is not theirs. They only recognize what they think of as right-wing racism. They never look inward and think,
yes,
well, what things are we doing on the left that are actually really quite racist? Like insisting that all of us black people vote on the left.
Yes. Oh, she's so good. And I love her hair.
Insisting that all of us black people hold certain values. Like, why can't we have the freedoms of white people to be able to think the way that we want to think?
All right. So
I would say that the racism on the left is more dangerous than the racism on the right. Because you can go to the South in the United States today and find real racists who will say, the problem with my city is those damn N-word people. I hate N-word people. They'll just come out and tell you that. But the racists on the left are kind of veiled in this compassion, this false compassion. We care about people. But it's, and I know people on the woke left hate this, but it's the racism of low expectations. We can't expect this type of good behavior you're wanting, and I mean it's all about they're oppressed and they're victims, and we we have to cater to their specific identities and needs, and we have to tolerate this behavior because really it's not their fault. Like, that type of racism, in my opinion, is way more dangerous than someone in some hillbilly in the South saying, "I hate these dang N-word people."
Problems in this conversation. I'm going to tell you what I'm having problems with, and maybe you can help me understand.
Okay.
Okay. So you have actual data. You have evidence about, for example, test scores. You have actual data about outcomes.
Yes.
This is not these are not the musings.
Follow
of
the
range
science.
People. This is evidence. Like, you have evidence so that an independent, neutral observer can look at this evidence with like a discrete number or.
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm having, what I'm having.
I know. It makes no sense.
So
look, I used to think, I tell you, when we were setting up the school and fought for so long to do it, I used to think, build it and they will come. That's what I used to think. And to some extent, that's true. We get 800 visitors a year, you know? And there are teachers who have changed their practices in their classroom for the better. But I really thought, I'll build a school and then people will be able to see the things that work, and then they'll think, great, and then we'll have a revolution.
Right.
That has not happened.
Okay. All right. So you have now outcomes of students, and I would assume like test scores, you said.
Yeah.
And you have I'm looking at
Young, who set up
I had a conversation
school.
with him. Yeah.
Right. So he set up a school, similar idea of knowledge being central to it and so on.
Yeah.
He didn't get the pushback I got. He didn't get people protesting outside his open events. He didn't get anything like the kind of hatred that I got. And why is that? Because he's a white guy. So white guys are allowed to be conservative. Black woman is not allowed to be, you know, but I can't then say that without the right saying to me that I'm claiming to be some kind of victim. Look, am I a victim? Have I let anything stop me? No, I keep going. But it's also interesting to see how
She's shaming Black women in America right now who are woke progressives. She's shaming you.
it's not just the right that can be racist, it's the left that can be racist. And the left will never accept that. And I find that too many Black people, you know, they're just sort of, they're still in that mindset of thinking that the way forward for us is to believe in the left mantra, when in fact the leftist mantra has completely destroyed us. You know, when I think about the welfare state and the damage it's done, and obviously I'm not arguing for children to be starving on the street, and I'm obviously not arguing for there to be no catch at all.
Yeah.
But we can see when we look at the stats on marriage rates for the Black family, you can see that in America. And
So for those of you who don't know, prior to the civil rights movement and prior to a lot of welfare reform in the 70s, the single parent, single mother stats were about the same for Black people as white people. Most people, I don't think, realize this. Then after the 60s and 70s, African American single motherhood just skyrocketed, way above the levels for white people. And you actually, if you look at single motherhood by Asian, Black, white, Hispanic, and then look at average income, household income for those same categories, they're perfectly aligned. But correlation is not causation.
Was completely destroyed by Johnson and the introduction of the welfare state. We can see how.
And my theory is, once you give people free stuff that they didn't have to work for, you take away their dignity, and it impacts them in a negative way. I think what the Canadian government and the American government have done to Native Americans in North America, by just, if you live on a reservation, I think in both countries, everything's free. Everything. Food, housing, shelter, snowmobiles, motorbikes, free. If you get off the reservation, then it's not. But if you're on the reservation, it is. And then when you are just, you have no reason to get up in the morning and work and contribute because everything's just given to you. It does something to your psyche. It does something. You're left like, oh, what am I going to do today? I might as well have a beer. And then that's why you have so many alcoholic Native Americans.
It's the mentality. I mean, I've worked with this all my life in the inner city, where kids, I mean, not here, because obviously very, very different. But before working here, or before setting up the school, it was the case that I would meet kids all the time in the inner city, girls who would say to me, oh, well, you know, maybe I could get pregnant and then I'll get a free flat and that kind of thing. Like, it was something that they would talk about as an option, you know, for them.
Get
where
pregnant,
mums would
get money.
Come to me. Gosh, I remember mums regularly coming to me and saying how the local council would make them do parenting classes because their kid was spinning out of control. And the council would be giving them advice to only praise their child and never punish their child. So they were giving them, and the mothers would be saying to me, but how can I praise her when she's doing all the wrong things? This is crazy, you know? Like, so
yeah, I teach my kids to look in the mirror every day and say, bad things are going to happen to me today, and they're probably my fault.
State, in many ways, not just by giving out welfare, by giving out advice, by setting various norms for families, right? By taxing people if they are living together. So when you're taxed more as a couple and you're better off if you split, well, then it ensures that families are split apart by the state. There are so many ways in which the state undermines the stuff that helps people. So if you look at Chinese kids and think, why do they do really well? Well, guess what? They tend to be raised in two-parent families. They tend to work really hard. They tend to not see themselves as victims. They tend to have an Eastern mindset, which I referred to at the beginning.
So for all the poor black people in America, if you want success, be more Asian. Notice I didn't say be more white. I said be more Asian, which is also a person of color. So you're a person of color if you're African American. Be like a different type of person of color, like Asian. See, that can't be racist.
Which is, you know, if a kid, once I said this at a conference, if a Western kid struggles at something and works really hard for it and gets it, the parent will say, well done, you're really clever.
Good job.
And they'll say, you're really clever, is what they'll say.
Really
They'll celebrate
clever.
his brains.
Right.
The Eastern kid, I'd said in this conference, I said, if a Chinese kid does that, works really hard, the parent will say, well done, you worked really hard. So that means when the kid then comes across another situation that he finds difficult, the Eastern kid thinks, if I work hard, I'll get it.
And
the Western kid
yeah.
thinks, am I clever enough to do this?
And what does the black kid think?
Well, if the black kid has been told, well done, blah, blah, he'll also think the same thing as the white kid. But if the black kid has been told by the media and by everybody that life is so difficult for him and the man is against him.
The system is set up against him.
Then why is he going to work? He's not going to do his homework. So I've seen this all my life. What is the point of working if the system is set up against you? And the only way you can make it in life is if you work really hard as a kid.
Right.
Now, look, I could have gone into the private sector. So for people...
Yeah. Oh, this resonates so well with me. I remember in high school, I worked hard. And I got this from my parents. I worked hard at everything, and including my schoolwork. And I remember my friends asking me, "What are you doing? Let's go out and do whatever." And I said, "No, I got homework." This is a true story. I lived by myself in a big house in grade 11. Crazy, I know. Don't ask me how that happened. But I would, instead of having parties and going out doing stuff, drinking or whatever, I remember getting big pieces of paper and taking my whole history course, putting it on this big papers so I could see it all at one time, studying for my exams. And my friends just, why are you doing this? And then when I graduated and got a huge scholarship that paid for 4 years, complete full ride to university, and then I kind of looking at them, that's why.
Watching this thinking, oh, you know, she's some right-wing loon. Look, every day I'm in school at 6:45 a.m. I've been doing this for 25 years, only ever working in the inner city with kids from disadvantaged backgrounds.
So I'm just telling you something, like I'm telling you, we cannot listen to these people anymore. They have literally nothing to contribute whatsoever.
Yes.
They won't have conversations. They have nothing to contribute. I'm completely done with them.
Yeah.
So we can just wipe that off
Yeah,
the
but you
table.
say
They're
that.
in make-believe land. They're playing with each other in make-believe
Yeah,
land.
but you say that. So many of them are teachers.
Okay.
So in my field, I
You're
can't
right.
just wipe them off. I have to engage. I have to try and persuade them. Because if I don't persuade them, then all of these kids, in particular the more disadvantaged kids, are being failed.
Hire me. I'm available. I mean, I'll move the family out to the UK, and it'd be like a retirement job.
And I have persuaded some of them. That has happened. And I know why you say, forget it, we can't deal with these people. And I know that in America, there are some of those people who are just off the charts crazy. You know, I know that's the case. But there are some people, there's a whole bunch of people. So there's the off the charts crazy people. But there's a whole bunch of people here who are on the left who are just, the Overton window has been moved.
Right.
So they've been pulled in that direction. And they don't want to be seen as bad people.
Right.
You know, so they put the black box up on Instagram because they feel that they ought to.
Yeah. My advice to people on the far left, the woke types, here's your homework assignment. Try to be viewed by your in-group as a bad person this week. Just do it for fun. You'll get a kick out of it.
And they just don't talk about trans issues because they don't want to, you know, they just don't want to be seen to be some kind of bigot, you know?
Do you think they value evidence? Like, I'm again coming back to the outcomes of the school. Because if they were sincere, thoughtful, honest people, they would look at the evidence and have a conversation.
Yes.
They would have a conversation about what the evidence is. And my argument to you would be, it is irrelevant whether this is on the right and the left. What is the outcome?
Yes. Yes. And there are people who think like that. And then they look at us and then they...
Well, that's how everybody should think. What's the evidence?
Yeah.
And is the earth warming from carbon, or is it anthropogenic? Then we can talk about what to do about it from policy prescriptions. Then maybe conservative. But like the evidence should never be politicized. It should just be what are the outcomes of the school? What are the test scores? How many kids come there? How many?
Yeah, but you say that because all of our values are small c conservative. Now, the thing is, it used to be the case that the left had those small c conservative values. So my father, very much a man on the left, comes from Guyana in South America, was friends with their president, Cheddi Jagan at the time, was a communist. You know, like these are outright communists.
Yeah.
Well, my father's very much a small c conservative. The reason why I'm a small c conservative is I was brought up in a small c conservative household, which frankly, I have to say, a lot of black people in America, Caribbean people, they are small c conservatives. They are naturally small c conservatives. The stuff I'm talking about, those values are their values. But then we've all been hoodwinked into thinking, well, you have to vote Democrat or you have to vote Labor over here, when in fact that's not the case. Now, look, the reason that's happened is because in the 50s and 60s and so on, it was the left that was fighting for us. There's no question, you know. My father aligned himself with the left because those were the people who made who fought for better rights for him, you know. So I get that. I get that point. But the thing is, we're still caught up.
She's thinking more here. She's been like, really talking fast, and this part she's
and this idea
contemplating
that people are just fighting for their rights, you know, but we're not back in civil rights. You know, that isn't the case anymore. We're inventing stories to fight against, like Smollett and you know, other situations like that where people are just, I say situations like that where they're making a much bigger deal out of one small little thing, you know,
or fabricating it entirely,
and all of you have really been harmed, I suppose, by the whole affirmative action stuff.
Do they not have affirmative action in Britain?
You know, I sort of understand why affirmative action was done in the day, because America wanted to redress things. But the fact that anyone would be against it stopping now, anyone who would be for affirmative action now, I don't understand how black people are happy to take a position knowing that they didn't deserve it.
Yeah, I made a short of this.
And
then other people would be suspect.
I can't bear it. And the thing is, what then happens is that then it hurts those of us who do deserve it.
Right.
So look at how hard I've worked to put this place together. Look how amazing it is. And yet people will come up to me and say, we'd love you to join our board because we really need it to be more diverse. And I think, do you know who I am? Do you know everything I've achieved? Why can you not see me for me? But they can't see me for me because they've been taught to only see color. And so I honestly feel in 1995, we had better race relationships with people than we do now. And that I wasn't treated like this. Yes, in 1995, people would come up to me and say, ooh, your hair, isn't it great? Now it's a microaggression and nobody would ever touch my hair. Well, you know what? I'd rather they touched my hair than put me on a board for being diverse. You know,
I agree 100%. I'd rather people touch my hair than put me on a board for diversity's sake.
When people used to touch my hair, who cares? So they touched my hair. They didn't have hair like mine. So yeah. I mean, I used to say, yeah, go ahead. I mean, what do I care? I mean, I don't understand why that is a bigger issue than making everybody, and then having everybody see everybody through the prism of race. I mean, you know, where you get at a school, you get offers for work experience, you know, in a law firm or whatever it is. Go and spend a couple of weeks. And they say, but this must be for a black child. And then I'm having conversations with my senior team going, well, is so-and-so black? Does he look black enough? What is black?
Yeah,
What?
it's so incredibly stupid with 2 O's. Does he look black enough? Do we have the right skin shade?
How can we make, and in the end, I'm just like, you know what? I don't even want this. Don't give me the opportunities for just black kids, because you put me in an impossible situation where I'm having to, I can't do that. I can't look at children and think, are you black? Are you white? Are you this? Are you that? I can't do it. I just, it's so messed up. It's so messed up. It's so messed up. And I don't understand how these anti-racist people don't understand that they are racist.
Right.
I don't get it. And that they're not helping black people. They're not helping black kids, you know, or brown kids. Brown and black kids are suffering because of this madness, because what they need is to be told, work hard, make yourself into something, and then you'll live a life that's worth living. Because you don't have to be a billionaire to have a successful life, right? You can be a teacher and live a wonderful life.
Yes.
You could be a doctor and live a wonderful life. You do not have to be the CEO of some bank where you're earning a fortune.
You can be a plumber, a black African-American plumber in the United States, and have a wonderful life. Save your pennies. And then after 10 years, start your own business. I mean, and even if you don't become a millionaire, I mean, you're very comfortable.
And then there's this idea of, well, the only way we can all be happy is if there's equal number of certain races in certain institutions.
Stupid.
Why does there have to be an equal number? What do we care? What matters is the kind of life that we lead, you know? What matters?
I asked this question the other day on a live stream. If a school, public school, was run by 100% Asians, why is that bad?
Have I been kind? Have I worked hard? Have I made sacrifices? Have I taken personal responsibility? Do I have a sense of duty towards other people? That's what makes your life worth living. You know, and that's what I try and teach the kids. That's what we all try and do.
Boy, the $1 million question I have is, how do we help people value those things?
Ooh. Yes. How do you make people value the things I value? Like working hard, personal responsibility, conscientiousness, being on work on time, keeping your word. Man, that's a good question. I guess it gets to the title of this live stream, Appealing to Progressives' Compassion. You have to take a value that you cherish and show how it helps the value they cherish. Let's see what answer she gives.
I know that those things are tied to outcomes that lead to individual flourishing.
Yes.
I don't
That's
know
exactly
the
right.
answer to that question.
Well, we have to start with our schools. What people don't understand.
Yeah.
First of all, we need people, before we even do that, we need people to understand how important schools are. Nobody cares about them. People just think about their own kids, and they think, if I get him into this private school, he'll be okay. Well, first of all, I'm here to tell you that the private schools are on fire, right? The private schools have more critical race theory than the public schools.
Oh, yeah.
The private schools are crazy, okay? They're just...
Well, that might be true, but you can still, if you can afford a private school, you can afford to find the right private school.
crazy because they're all guilty about their privilege. And so the only way they can feel less guilty is by bringing in loads of critical race theory books and teaching the kids to hate themselves and all the rest of it. It's just mad.
Yeah, we got to get rid of, don't feel guilty for being successful.
So if you put your child into the private school, you're taking your life into your hands, you know? It's actually getting to a point where you can't go anywhere without seeing this sort of stuff. But in a way, I'm pleased that that sort of happened. The critical race theory debate has happened because Before that, look, I have for a decade and a half been talking about this stuff. I've been shouting and screaming about child-centered learning. I've been shouting and screaming about
phonics, I bet.
You know, about
phonics.
Oh, yeah, phonics, exactly. I've been shouting and screaming about
Yeah, child-centered learning is that the child kind of leads the way. No. Whitney Houston was wrong. You do not. Children should not lead the way.
the children leading the way instead of the adults, about the fact that we're not teaching British history properly. I was shouting about here in this country. Nobody's been listening to me. Parents now have only taken an interest now that race is on the cards and trans is on the cards. Those two things have made people sit up and take notice.
Yep.
Before that, nobody cared. And nobody cared because nobody cares about schools. Nobody cares about the importance that they have and the impact that they have on the future of a country. If you care about your country, you have to care about the schools. And I keep saying this. Nobody's listening to me. And they're not listening because once they've got their kid into school, look, this is most parents. Get them into a decent enough school. He'll be all right. Comes home at the end of the day. How's your day? Fine. Great. You got some homework? Go do your homework. That's it. I'm always thinking, how do you know it's the right homework? How do you know what the homework is? How do you know how much homework it is? How do you know what levels he's met? You're just assuming that the school knows what they're doing. You have absolute...
Yeah, when my kids come home, with my son now, when he comes home, the first thing I ask him, tell me the worst thing that happened today. And then he does. Then tell me the best thing that happened today. And then he does. And then when it comes to homework, I'll ask him, what are you taking in econ right now? What are you taking in math right now? And then I'll quiz him. In fact, the other day, he came home and he talked about his economics class. And I think I talked to him for 5 minutes. And I just verbal diarrhea about economics. Blah. And my son said, I learned more in the 5 minutes that you told me than almost this whole semester in economics. And my expectations of public school is so low, I have to be honest here, that I teach my kids to teach themselves. So there's many times my son comes home and says, I just ignore the teachers and I read ahead. And I just read and read. Because the teachers are not good. They suck. Some are good. Some don't suck. But some are really bad. It's unbelievable. So it's not that I don't care about the public school system. It's my expectation is just so low. So why does my son go to public school? Because of the drama program.
No idea. How do you know his day was nice? His day, yeah, it was fine. How do you know it was fine? How do you know he wasn't beaten up? How do you know he wasn't bullied? You have no idea.
That's why I asked, what's the worst thing that happened to you? And if he does get punched, he'll tell me.
And the reason you have no idea is because that's what kids say when they come home. It was fine. They're teenagers. They don't want to talk to their parents. And because the parents are busy, well, they don't.
I know.
Indeed. If you don't know what's going on in your child's school, I'm telling you, crazy stuff is going on, right? Nobody listens to me. I got up in 2010 and said that. The whole world, they all went mad.
Yeah. In 2010, she talked to a conservative. Here it is. A conservative conference. I'll play a little bit of it. And she was chastised heavily. How dare you talk to conservatives?
My name's Katharine, and I'm a deputy head in Inner London. I myself was educated in the state sector, and I went to Oxford, where I was a serious lefty. And I read Marxism Today and flirted with the Socialist Workers' Party. And then I became a teacher. I have come here today to expose some of the truths about the education system. My experience of teaching for over a decade in 5 different schools has convinced me beyond a shadow of a doubt that the system is broken because it keeps poor children poor. This is Kane. The other day he was in trouble and was spending his lunch hour with me. His best friend Mitchell approached wanting to talk to him, and I said that he couldn't because Kane was in trouble. Mitchell responded with, "But miss, it isn't Kane's fault. He was born with anger management." And Kane said, "Yes, miss, it's not my fault. I am anger management." Notice how these boys don't even know what they're saying, but their words reveal a deeper culture of excuses, of low standards and expecting the very least from our poorest and most disadvantaged.
Yeah, listen to the conservatives applaud there. But this is like people on the left who are woke, they're just going crazy here. No, it's okay to look a kid in the eye and say, this is your fault. This is a bad thing you did. And even if they're a minority, an oppressed minority, it's okay to look that oppressed minority in the eyes and say, it is your fault. I mean, a woke progressive could never do that. I dare a woke progressive to do that. Next time, no.
When I have Kane repeat after me, "I'm responsible for myself, miss. Yes, I'm responsible for myself," I am fighting a generation of thinking that has left our education system in pieces, where all must have prizes, all must have GCSEs, and all must have a place at university. We have a situation where standards have been so dumbed down that even the children themselves know it. When I give them past exam papers to do from 1998, they groan and beg for one from 2005 or 6 because they know it'll be easier. The idea of benchmarking children and letting them know how they compare to their peers is considered so poisonous by us teachers that we don't ever do it. And we let children live in darkness without any idea of how they compare to those around them, let alone those who are educated in the private sector.
Yes. Oh. When I went to high school, the report cards had rankings on it. And I think some schools still do it today. But you could actually, a kid could go up to another kid and say, hey, what's your ranking? And you can say, I am better than you at chemistry. I am better than you at math. You are better than me at social studies, whatever it might be. Like nowadays, that's just viewed as, I mean, this will cause tears on some kids and they'll be insecure. And this is what the real world is like. Oftentimes when I am talking to people in the comment section of my YouTube channel and they start using certain words like, I demolished you in this argument, you use this fallacy, whatever, I can tell right away that they've never been ranked. They don't know where they're at, and they need to prove themselves. And that they're so insecure that they need this sense of winning because it didn't happen for them in school.
Exclusion quotas bind our head teachers, league tables have us all pursuing targets and grades instead of teaching properly, and the ordinary child, like, draw down from the well-meaning politicians from up above. Kids themselves cry out for structure and discipline. I remember once a child begging to be in my class, and when I said no, he said, "But miss, I want to be in your class because I hear you're really mean."
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if you think back in your own life, the teachers you remember the most, it'd probably be the meanest ones, the most strict ones. Anyhow, I think I'll leave it